Today I'm gonna show you how you can take your videos to the next level using shallow depth of field. What is shallow depth of field, you might ask yourself? Well, the definition of depth of field is the distance between the nearest and the furthest object that appears to be sharp in an image. So when you have a deep depth of field, a lot of things are gonna be in focus. Whereas when you have a shallow depth of field, just a few things are going to be in focus. If you watch a lot of movies or YouTube videos, chances are you're gonna see clips where only the main subject or a part of the main subject is in focus. Using shallow depth of field in your videos will not only make them look sharper and create depth, it will also give you the freedom to decide what you want your viewers to look at. Because when there's only one subject in focus, that's the subject that they are going to look at. And by using shallow depth of field to blur out all the other subjects, you don't even give them a choice what to look at. So now that we know what shallow depth of field is, how do we achieve it? One thing that determines how shallow your depth of field is the size of your sensor. Basically, the bigger your sensor, the shallower your depth of field. So if you can choose between, let's say, an APS-C camera and a full frame camera, they both have the same stats, they both cost the same price, and you really want that nice shallow depth of field, you should probably go for full frame. But let's say you already have a camera and can't change the size of your sensor. Don't worry, because there are other criteria that are going to influence your depth of field way more. The first one of them is your aperture. The more open your aperture is, so the lower your f-stop is, the shallower your depth of field is going to be. This shot, for example, was shot at f1.4, which makes the chest really stand out and we don't really see anything in the background. Whereas when we close the aperture, the boat in the background becomes more visible, and as we close the aperture even more, both the chest and the boat are in focus. But keep in mind that when changing the aperture, you're also changing the exposure, so you might end up with an underexposed or overexposed image. The second thing that will influence your depth of field is the distance from your camera to the subject. The closer you are to your subject, the shallower your depth of field is going to be, and the further away you are from your subject, the deeper your depth of field is going to be. The third thing that will affect your depth of field is your focal length. The longer your focal length, the shallower your depth of field, and the shorter your focal length, the deeper your depth of field. So with a wide angle lens like the 16 to 35mm, you're gonna get a pretty deep depth of field. Whereas with a telephoto lens like this 70 to 300mm, you're gonna get a pretty shallow depth of field. Which means with this lens there's gonna be a lot of things in focus, whereas with this lens there's gonna be only a few things in focus. To really show you this, I've got some examples right here. All of these clips were shot with the exact same settings at f5.6, and I tried to get around the same framing. Here we have 16mm, 24mm, 35mm, 50mm, 70mm, 150mm, and last but not least 300mm. If we now compare the shot at 16mm with the shot at 300mm, you can really see a significant difference. And last but not least, we have the angle you point your camera at something with. The best demonstration for this would probably be to just lay a book on a table. Basically, when you focus on something, you don't focus on a point, you focus on a plane. So as we move the camera up and pan down with it, more and more of the book comes into focus. And we can also see that in this video right here. So that was it for today's video. I hope you learned something. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.